let me just tell you that we're really lucky today. We have Robert Gardner here with Lime. They worked really closely with me and lots of other folks to do the ordinance 2423, which just recently passed, that set reasonable fees for micromobility rentals in our city. Some of you mentioned that we used to have programs and they all went away. The fees had been raised to a level that were pretty unbelievable. And so we went through the ordinance, we amended the fees down to a level that makes sense. And we also put in some really important equity considerations in there. So we make sure that folks in all parts of the city are going to get to benefit from these rentals. And then we also put some, pretty strong requirements on the companies that want to come here and say, if you're going to come here and you're going to offer this service, you're going to keep them maintained, you're going to keep them orderly, you're going to pick up broken ones or ones that are stashed in the wrong places really quickly. It's not going to be a onus on the city, it's on the companies. And I think we're going to get, because of that, we're going to get really good, high quality companies coming like Lime. So I'm really glad that Robert was able to be here today to kind of talk us through how this would work. And so I'm going to just turn it over to him, let him go through the presentation, and then we'll do Q&A. Thanks for being here, Robert.
Excellent. And thank you so much, Councilmember Fiebelkorn, for your leadership here. I totally agree that this is going to be an amazing service for the city, for really for every part of the city, except for those parts that we don't want them to be in, obviously. Just by way of introduction, before I get into presentation, my name is Robert Gardner. I am not in Albuquerque. I'm in Washington, D.C. As I was explaining to the council member before, my votes don't matter. So I don't have the opportunity to vote for Councilmember Fiebelkorn. But my background is in environmental activism, environmental litigation, and additionally in bicycle advocacy. I spent several years doing bicycle advocacy in Washington. And if anyone is ever in town, I hope you take advantage of the amazing infrastructure that we've been able to build here. It's really certainly for the dockless space or for docked bike share, it's an amazing opportunity, and I look forward to coming back to Albuquerque and seeing bike lanes all over the place. So that's my objective. Okay, let me see if this works. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. We good? Can everyone see? Awesome. So I will walk through. I've got a couple pieces here, and if anyone can tell me how to make the numbers green all the time in a presentation, I would be infinitely grateful to you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Lime, a little bit about Albuquerque, some of the rules, really, and where we're at this point. The vehicle that we're going to be bringing, how to report if the wheel is broken or something is wrong with the vehicle, but then also our customer service. How we view safety for riders and non-riders, because we want to be conscientious citizens and make sure that even those individuals that aren't riding our vehicles have a clear public right of way, and that we're not in violation, certainly, or we're not sort of spirit or rule of law on the any ADA requirements. Looking at infrastructure, what the city has in mind as well, some of our parking and parking validation. It will come as no surprise that parking is a big issue in relation to scooters, and then a little bit about Lime and how we're here for the long term as a company. We'll go through all of that. If at any time anyone has any questions, feel free. I'm a chatty person, so very happy to answer any questions. And I will try to monitor the chat, but like Councilmember Fiebelkorn, I sometimes am not that great at it. Cool.
I've got your
So
back there, Robert.
thank you so much, Tanya. So who are we? Lime is a dockless micromobility company. We're on 5 continents. The gentleman who said he was in Europe. We're all over Europe. We're in both North America, Canada, United States, and soon to be in Mexico. We're working hand in hand with the World Cup Committee to make a smooth World Cup. Additionally, we're in the Middle East as well. With some plans, future plans for expansion. We just launched. We have vehicles all throughout Australia, and we've just launched Japan is our newest market. Very strict operations in Japan. They take things very seriously. We have around 260,000 vehicles at any given time in 230 plus cities. That tends to flex depending upon the time of year. Northern Hemisphere, it tends to go down in winter, and so on and so forth. It says here that we have over 400 million trips. That is expanding and expanding and expanding. We recently just went through the Paris Olympics, where we had record ridership, flexing our vehicle count there to right around 15,000 vehicles. Um, Shockingly, not the largest city for Lime. Largest city for Lime is London, where we have 35,000 vehicles in London. And I will say, certainly for our bike advocate friends here and our municipal partners, the reason that that happened is not just they decided to have a program, but because the mayor of the city of London has taken a very aggressive stance on vehicle miles traveled and automobiles coming into the city. They put a congestion fee in, which makes it much more expensive to travel into the city of London. But additionally, during COVID, built bike lanes wholesale. It is the obvious and rational choice when you're traveling in London. So I hope if anyone gets there soon, you will see it is a biking city now. Not quite Amsterdam, but Amsterdam wasn't Amsterdam in 1965. It took a huge effort in the 70s to make that happen. So there's hope for all of our cities. You see here? Okay. So let's talk a little bit about status update. Lime is in the permitting stage right now. What that means is basically business licensing, warehousing, making sure that we go through all of the permit approvals with the city. It's not terribly comprehensive in the sense that, it's very straightforward. You have to provide them with our plans to be able to operate, to be able to meet the requirements of the contract. But then additionally, going through vehicle specifications and all of the things that you would imagine that permitting looks like. We are working to flex between 500 and 1,000 vehicles in the city, depending. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit about the equity deployment, but there'll be vehicles everywhere that we want them. They'll be a little bit more concentrated in downtown and midtown, given the deployment locations that the city wants us to deploy in. And you can see those in the right, lower right. That's Alvado. So basically, the city has a series of deployment locations at 50 that they want us to concentrate on to make sure that tidiness is really front of mind for us. And we will have a team of people that will be not just deploying, but rebalancing to those locations to make sure that the city is tidy and that the vehicles are there. Additionally, we have what's called a hotspot optimizer. So we will be able to work with the city to shift deployment depending upon demand. One of the things that we were able to show is Lime has never operated in Albuquerque, but the demand for our service, people opening our app, looking for our vehicles everywhere in the city. So I think what we'll find out as we begin deploying is that there's a much higher demand than anticipated. Folks want to get around. If you don't have a car, if you don't necessarily want to take a mile drive in your car and try to find parking and all that stuff, Lime is going to be the obvious choice. Additionally, as the council member passed in the amendment to the initial ordinance, 20% of our vehicles, so depending on the number we have, but up to 200 vehicles will be located in equity emphasis areas. Those areas, from my understanding at least, need to be updated. They're a little bit antiquated. That's okay. But we will have our vehicles out and available for individuals, regardless of income and regardless of geography throughout the city. It's something that we're incredibly proud of. Our program, for folks that have been to Denver, Denver actually, their program has no permit cost associated, but we are required to provide free rides to anyone that qualifies for our programming, which is fantastic and has become really a hallmark of the program. I think 41% of all of our rides are low-income individuals, which is fantastic. I spoke about it
Hey,
earlier.
Robert.
Yes.
Sorry, we do have a question. Carlos wanted to know if the trips listed were trips per year.
Total?
Yeah, I
in the total
believe you
section?
said 400,000
400 million.
million. Okay. Is that in total?
That's in total,
Okay.
correct. Uh, so just for reference, year to date, I believe DC is where we have around, depending upon season, around 9,300 vehicles. We've had around 3 million rides so far this year. So massive program, and I think that will translate very well in Albuquerque as well. We will have teams of people that will go around the city rebalancing our vehicles. If there is a wayward vehicle, as the council member hinted to, that's our responsibility. That is for us to shift. I will anticipate there'll be some bad actors somewhere, like there always is. And it is our job to make sure that they are no longer able to rent our vehicles. So fraud detection is obviously very, very big with us, and we want to make sure that those bad actors are weeded out as soon as possible. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is to rebalance our vehicles and get those vehicles where they need to be so people can ride them. That's what's in our interest, is to make sure that the city looks tidy, that people can ride them, and that people can, can continue to ride them in the best possible scenario. We don't want vehicles ending up in the river. We're going to do everything humanly possible to prevent that. Excuse me. And I know that some folks were a little skittish about getting on a Lime. That's okay. You can see here in the middle, we have what's called the First Ride Academy. And I think it is crystal clear that we need to have First Ride Academy for this group or for anyone that wants to join. What we see is once folks get over the first ride, once you have that first ride, and we have a team there that's going to get you a helmet, make sure that you're on it safely. We can even throttle the vehicle down to a lower top speed. That you're really in that position to be able to feel comfortable, to understand the vehicle, what the mechanics are, how it rides, and you're doing so in a closed environment, which keeps you safe, as opposed to just hopping on, after dinner and zooming off. So we'll put a pin in that bike racket, whatever you want to call it, and we'll get a First Ride Academy on the books. Generally, we tend to do those before we deploy. So when we get the warehouse set up and we get the vehicles in town, we want to do that for, obviously for EMS, for the police, for city staff, to make sure that everybody has an understanding of exactly how these vehicles work. These are not the sort of kick scooters that we had, as kids. These are transportation vehicles. They're heavier. They've got more features built in, and ultimately there for people to ride and use, to get to work, to get groceries, etc. If you ever want to have a good laugh, you can go on. I don't have TikTok, but there are plenty of TikTok videos of people, with 50 bags of groceries riding on a Lime back from the grocery store. It's amazing what people do, the carabiners and all the whole thing. Additionally, part of what we do and what we will be bringing to Albuquerque is our programming. So we partner with nonprofits, specifically with those nonprofits that are focused on getting folks to the polls, but also folks working on equitable development and making sure that individuals that are enrolled in their programming have the opportunity to use our vehicles. We really want to work, I'll just say it, we really want to work with everybody. We want to make sure that people have a really good understanding of how the vehicles work. If there are specific areas that we want to add to deployment, community centers, et cetera, we want to make that happen. So we are flexible in terms of making sure that we can get those vehicles where they want to be. This specific example, Line to the Polls, is from NYC Votes, but we are partnered with Michelle Obama's organization when we vote. So we are really trying to get folks out. We provide them with free rides to and from the polls on election day. Okay, so this is the vehicle that we'll be bringing. This is our latest generation scooter. You can see it's not quite a kick scooter. Get a little bit more into it. So for bike people out there, I'm a bike person. They have swept handlebars, so it's a little more ergonomic and comfortable. You can see there we've got the 10-inch tire, dual kickstand, so the wind in Albuquerque doesn't blow it down. Grip tape, front and rear headlights. The rear headlights, like a car, when you squeeze the brake, they get brighter, as opposed to sort of normal state of being just on. But what I really want to focus here is not on the sort of GPS and all of the software and all of that stuff that goes into it. But one of the things that we're really proud of is that Lime made a decision a couple years back to go all in on swappable batteries. So what that looks like, you can see, I think it's point 0.7 there, is that in the frame itself is the battery. And the battery pops out, pops in. What that means practically is that we are, as a company, really focused on reducing vehicle miles traveled, reducing people in trucks driving around with our vehicles, reducing people with vans driving vehicles to, full of scooters, et cetera. That has to happen sometime, and we offset those emissions, obviously, and we're moving towards EV 100. I think we're about 70-ish% of the way there. However, at this point in time, our vehicles they become sort of field mechanics and swappable battery mechanics. We do have to rebalance the vehicles, put them in vans, et cetera. But ultimately, what we're focused on is trying to get our drivers off the road as much as possible. And I foresee a day in which we're doing almost all of this work using electric vehicles, small electric vehicles, light electric vehicles, to make sure that we don't have, Sprinter vans and all that kind of stuff. I did see something pop up, Tanya. Are there more questions?
Yes, but we can wait till the end. But
Cool.
two of them, it's up to you.
Whatever's clever. I'm easy.
So one person said, I was in DC this weekend and Lime was everywhere, super convenient. And the next person said, what is the top speed of the scooters?
So as governed, which they will be, it is 15 miles per hour. If you want to get crazy, you can talk to some of our warehouse mechanics that have ungoverned them, but that's not really something that will be available on the street. So just to talk through it a little bit, 15 miles an hour will be the top speed. Then we will have those areas that are low speed zones. So we'll drop the speed down to about 8 miles an hour, which you really don't want to go too much slower than that. Gravity becomes a factor. Physics are real. So 15 miles an hour will be the speed of the vehicle. That is, for lack of a better term, that is across the United States. 15 miles an hour is the speed limit. There are some outliers, which, but that's kind of how it goes. It's also, just for folks that want to know, it's a 25 mile per hour range, but we've got a big battery update coming here in September, which will take it to about 40-mile range for you lithium-ion battery people. So just so that folks know, we understand that every terrain is different, every city is different. We totally understand that. We're designing one vehicle for global use. So our vehicles are really designed to take anything that's thrown at them. For folks that have been in DC, we have as many terrains as you could possibly imagine. That includes city of Alexandria, Virginia, which was literally where George Washington lived. And so cobblestone, streets, grates, water everywhere, it's the whole thing. We work really hard to design sturdiness and safety into the vehicle itself. I think when we have the opportunity to get you on one of the vehicles, you'll feel it. It's a triple braking system, for instance. I mean, we have 10-inch pneumatic tires. I mean, across the board, the vehicle is designed not to be abused. Let's not abuse them. But it's designed to be used. I weigh 240 pounds. I ride them almost every day. And I have had to jump off curbs and all these things for whatever reason. It happens. But it's a sturdy vehicle, and it's designed to be used, and it's designed to be saved. So we'll talk a little bit about it as well, because customer service is incredibly important to us. You have a number of different opportunities to really get in touch with us. Should there be a problem with the vehicle, it does happen. People like to tag them with pens and stuff like that. People like to put stickers on them. Recently, people have been putting their own QR codes on them for delivery services and these type of things. So we find all kinds of stuff that happens. If you put it in the public right of way, we've probably seen it. So ultimately, we are an app-based system. you have the opportunity to report any of our vehicles, regardless if you're a user. You don't have to put in a credit card. You can report anything that's going on. If there's an errant vehicle, if somebody put a sticker or God forbid, wrote something obscene on one of our vehicles, you can report that directly in the app. We also are, in many cities that works very well. You can do it through 311 or whatever system the city has set up. Additionally, it's on the vehicle itself. So what you're looking at on the left here is the stem of the vehicle. All of this information is going to be on the vehicle itself. Additionally, you're going to have the road rules, as you can see on the bottom, and a little bit of a tutorial on the top, just for sort of final safety, which is great. We have 24/7, 365. I think it's in 65 different languages available for you through our phone service, which works fantastic. That same service exists on our website for individuals with difficulty hearing. That we're fully integrated with that service as well. So you're going to be able to get in touch with us very easily. Our support line, similarly, any language basically you can throw at them, they have. We do have social media. Our social media people are fantastic. Whilst you can get in touch with us through social media, Instagram, etc., they would prefer that you don't. But feel free to. That's fine too. Whatever you want to do. We also set up a direct email address and a direct line for our team. It will be helpabq@li.me. That's going to go direct to our warehouse, and that's going to create what's called a task. And that task is going to be zeroed out by our team. Generally, it happens in about 15 minutes, but obviously within the context of the rules, I would assume it's going to be pretty straightforward. We don't want our vehicles being errant. We don't want our vehicles ending up in places they shouldn't be. So ultimately, we want to get the vehicles moved. And also, just for any city folks that could be on, you will have our city contacts text number. You'll be able to just text them. That is a really fast way to get things done. So let's talk a little bit about safety, because safety is incredibly important. We talked a lot about hardware. The hardware is incredibly stable. We have the opportunity to hand out helmets and all those things. Our lights are visible for 1,000 feet, which is longer than the length of a football field, which is fantastic. The vehicles themselves are just really built sturdy. They're built tough. Actually, pretty hard to break. But additionally, what we're really proud of is that they're modular. So if we do have a vehicle, for instance, end up in the water, we have a very robust recycling program. We try not to lose any parts. We try not to we're a zero waste company. So we try everything humanly possible to keep that straightforward. Technology, we talked a little bit about it, but while we don't want you looking at your app when you're riding our vehicle, we do everything possible before the ride and after the ride to make sure that you're riding responsibly. What that looks like practically, and I'll go through a little bit later, that's rules of the road. That's making sure that you have basically your route mapped out. So when you look at the screen, you're going to see, okay, this area is geofenced, this area is not geofenced. We're also integrated with Google Maps. We're also integrated with Uber for folks that use Uber. So we're really trying to get that last moment before you start the ride, get your eyeballs on the screen, making sure that you have that information moving forward. The device itself is integrated with our geofencing. So if you're going into a no operation zone, a slow ride zone, it's not reliant upon you having cell phone service. It's reliant upon the vehicle having GPS, which it will, which is fantastic. We have tandem running detection, one person to one vehicle. So if we find you tandem riding, we're going to give you, it's a 3 strikes, you're out. We're going to give you a warning, a fine, and we're going to boot you. It's pretty straightforward. And then the vehicles themselves have an automatic diagnosis if they're broken or something's wrong with them. We're going to get them out of the public right away as soon as possible. Additionally, and this has come up in a number of different jurisdictions, we are a licensed, insured, and bonded company. We're not, sort of 2 people with a truck, who are dumping 50 scooters out in the public right of way. All of our operations are fully insured. We have a warehouse that will be operable in Albuquerque. We have pretty strong insurance requirements with the city. So, safety is built into that process, and you do have recourse, obviously, again, God forbid if something goes wrong. And then when we look at education, we talked about the First Ride Academy. So safety messaging, we can push notifications to the rider. We can use in-app notifications. We can even send in-app notifications. If you're not in the app, it won't come through, but we can do it. We are looking for folks that are impaired. We're looking to get them off the app. We don't want you riding when you're impaired. Similarly, we can reduce the speed during your ride. We know if you've been in an accident or a crash. Sorry, for the bike people out there, we don't say accident, we say crash. And then, as I said earlier, tandem riding. But then I think what's important is after the ride itself, we are auditing your pictures. We actually have an AI audit. So and this happens, you have to take a ride at the end of all your rides to show that you parked appropriately. If you did not, it will not let you end your ride. If you try to end your ride in no operation zone, it will not let you end your ride, and it will keep tolling on your credit card. Eventually, it will throw you off as well. So we talked a little bit about this, but on the left, you're going to see our accident detection, and that basically is based upon the accelerometer. So if you're going, let's just say 10 miles an hour, and it automatically stops, we know that you've been in a crash, and we're going to ping you. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you just stopped, but we know, and we're going to try and ping you. Something that we're bringing into cities around the country as well is sidewalk riding. That takes a while to bring in, takes about 9 to 12 months to actually map the city itself. And that's something that we are working every day on to make sure that we keep folks off the sidewalk when that is necessary. Good example is Washington, D.C. Central Business District in Washington, D.C. has no sidewalk riding. The rest of the city does. It's not a problem at all. So it's tricky, but we're still working it out to make sure that we have the appropriate boundaries around the central business district, which isn't so intuitive, and that folks can do whatever they need to do within the rules outside of the central business district. Additionally, if we see fraud, if we see problems related to fraud, we will do ID verification as well. And a reason for that, I think, just to be clear, is we don't want people under the age of 18 riding our vehicles. 16, I know, is a great age. You can drive a car. Everybody loves getting their permit when they're 15 and 3/4 or whatever. But we set a date at 18. And we're really conscious of trying to keep folks off of that. Kids will get their parents' credit cards. They'll sign up for our service and ride. But we're trying to keep folks out of that. So if we see that problem, we'll bring ID scan in. So I think important here to discuss is we're committed to the city and we're committed to the infrastructure involved. So we're paying into the parking infrastructure. Each of the corrals that are set up, and I think it'll look something like this, though it probably won't have a green barrier. They probably won't let us do that. Some cities do. Someone was in Denver recently. We paint the corrals there. But the most important thing, I think, for us is paying in to the city. And I know we have no control over this, but hopefully that will end up in investment in the infrastructure for the city itself. There are micromobility funded bike lanes in cities across the country, and would like nothing more than to see that come to Albuquerque. I think that's incredibly important, obviously, to keep people safe, but additionally, it really is reinforces the mode, reinforces bikes, reinforces scooters, which is incredibly important. Second here, and what we're really excited about is we're testing and bringing a new technology, and we're pending municipal agreement. We will be able to bring that to Albuquerque as well, which is a Bluetooth beacon, which communicates directly with the vehicles itself, that will be placed in the ground. Hence why we need a municipal agreement to start screwing things into the ground around our parking itself. It really reinforces the parking. And even if the vehicle is parked just slightly outside, it's like Think of it almost as like a Wi-Fi boost on the GPS that's going to make sure the vehicles are parked appropriately. And then lastly, we have a huge field team that is really committed to making sure that the vehicles are parked appropriately, that the vehicles are rebalanced appropriately, and that we're zeroing out any concerns that the city might have. So you will see folks in green jackets and bike helmets walking around, biking around, scooting around, really focused on making sure that our vehicles are rebalanced. If you have any concerns, feel free to go up and talk to them. But remember, they are people, and there are going to be people that are going to scream at them for whatever reason. So please, as always, just be nice. This is what your end ride experience is going to look like. So for those folks that haven't ridden a vehicle, this is all app-based. And when you end your ride, it's going to tell you to park at a designated spot. And you have your map here, and you can see on the far left there is a little blue P, and it's going to say park there. You're going to try and end your ride, and it's going to say park at a designated spot because we really want to get you at that spot. If you do that, then it's green, like anything else. You've ended your ride appropriately. That's great. If you haven't, it's going to say end your ride at a designated spot because we really want you to get through that. To be frank, a lot of people try and mash buttons and do all the tricks that they want to do. It's not going to work. It's interconnected with our vehicles themselves. You can mash as many buttons as you want. Your ride is not going to end. And so we really are trying to get folks to park at those designated spots. How do we verify that that's happened? Other than the app itself, we're going to send communications to your phone. We're going to send communications in the app. We're going to email folks if we have their email address. A lot of people put 123 Main Street. We know that, but we're going to continue to use all channels available to us. And this is a graphic that we're going to send pretty clearly to folks to make sure that they do it. Additionally, and this is super cool for folks that have been to DC, we use Google Maps Street View Sight Glass. So if you try and end your ride, downtown DC in areas near the federal government, you literally have to take your phone and go like this so that they can see and match up with the cityscape itself. You've parked in the right place. And I think that's a really cool feature because, you would be shocked at how many people have spoofing and all of these type of things on their phone to try and get around parking a scooter when they can just move it 3 feet, which is to me a little bit wild. So Sight Glass is going to put an end to that, and it has largely in Washington, D.C., specifically in the downtown area. And then we monitor all of our end trip photos. You would not be surprised that people like to play games at the end trip photos because it's a photo and they think it's going into a vault somewhere. No, we have people who are reading those and looking at those, unsurprisingly, have a best hits of purported end trip photos. But ultimately, what we do is you can see on the far right here, if your vehicle is not parked in the box, basically, and we cannot see your vehicle, you cannot end your ride. What that means for 99% of trips is you just have to back up 2 feet. Then we can see your vehicle and we can see that it's parked appropriately. But for that small percentage of trips that are that end either outside of the box or in areas that are a little bit off, or that are blocking the public right of way, that's you have to move your vehicle. It's pretty straightforward. And then, as it says here, we have 3 strikes, you're out policy. We will find somebody, and we give them ample warning, but we don't want them to end in the public right of way, certainly blocking an ADA zone or blocking pedestrians. What I think is great, and having spent time in Albuquerque, there is a bunch of diverse environments inside the city, from suburban to urban to forested to really diverse environments, the old city, et cetera. We've seen it, and we've done it in different cities throughout the world, really, at this point. So there's not much that you can sort of throw at us that we haven't seen. So good example of that, again, coming from the far right in Washington, D.C., for folks that have spent time here, it is a jurisdictional nightmare. And you could have a situation in which there are 3 or 4 jurisdictions that have really control over one specific space. Good example of that is the National Mall, where it is operated by a National Park Service, but the roads that go through it are maintained by DC Department of Transportation. But then there are areas within that that are owned and operated by the architect of the Capitol. So, making sure that we have compliance in those environments, it takes time. We have to work through those issues. And we've come to a really good solution. And now anyone that comes to the National Mall can see more things in their trip, which is fantastic. We've got some other examples here, really from Texas, where university environment with Texas Tech, Deep Ellum, if anyone's been at Deep Ellum, lots of bars, lots of things happening there. And then Corpus Christi, you have it's whole ocean there. Well, Gulf, excuse me. Feels like an ocean sometimes. So we're really primed to bring this to Albuquerque and to shift our operations as necessary. And then just for folks that are listening, Lime is a profitable company. We've been around for many years, and we're excited to continue to bring this moving forward. Otherwise, I'm just really excited to work with you guys. Really excited for folks to get on the vehicles. Really excited for the launch. Really excited we have open job positions. If you know somebody who's looking for a job, I'm happy to put that in the chat as well. Yeah, it's all moving forward. We're in the permitting stage, and I can't wait to have that first ride academy with everyone. Get you on a scooter and see the light bulb pop.
I do have some chat questions, unless you want to open the floor to.
Hang on, Tanya. Let's stop sharing screen so we can see folks.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Robert. I know there's a lot of questions in the chat. I want to give folks a chance to raise their hand and ask their questions in person. So if you have a question, please let us know. While you're figuring out how to raise your hand or how to just wave at me, we'll go down some of the questions in the chat. So go ahead, Tanya.
Okay. Will it slow down, for example, going downhill?
Good question. If you put the brakes on,
Okay.
it definitely will slow down. But basically, the vehicle itself it's capped, but it does not have regenerative braking, which is what I think regenerative braking or regenerative going downhill. I can't remember the exact term for that. We don't have that feature yet. I would assume that they're working on that, and that'll come out in the Gen 5, obviously to add some battery life. But going downhill, my recommendation is rear brake, not the front brake. And it's just like a bike, you can give it a little bit. And then if you are going with the vehicle just for some rider hints, what people tend to do is push the accelerator all the way down immediately when they get on. And my recommendation is just put it a little bit of the way down and get yourself going 3 to 5 miles an hour. And then you can sort of judge for yourself what speed is appropriate for you.
Okay. Carlos?
Yeah, thanks for that. That was when you were talking about the governors. So I was curious if the governor would stop you, but it sounds like it doesn't. So if you're going downhill, you could
It
potentially
won't go over 15 miles an hour. Correct. It will stop you at 15 miles an hour.
Okay, even if it's being pulled by gravity downhill.
100%.
Okay, cool. That was the question. And then I was glad to see it's integrated with like Google app maps. It'd be neat if we can integrate with the transit app too. I know a lot of folks use the transit app.
Yeah,
That's a
I mean,
really
basically,
good idea.
yeah, what that looks like is, and obviously happy to get in touch with them. If anyone has a point of contact, we'd love to follow up. Um, Basically, what that looks like practically is what's called an API, and you send them a data feed. What's harder is what's called wallet integration, which would enable you to actually rent a vehicle through their app. There are some pretty strict data rules associated with that. So I would imagine if that integration does happen, it will start with a sort of find a scooter, and then we'd have to figure out what we need to do to get a wallet integration.
Okay.
Yeah.
I use it almost every day here, and
Mm.
it's it's countrywide. I just went to Duluth, Minnesota, and was able to, buy my bus ticket on the
Nice.
transit app. So that'd be neat for future collaboration. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks for that
And
idea, Carlos. I do think that's a good one. I know that I've talked to Robert about 311 integration for kind of, hey, I see one that's broken or I see one that's somewhere it's not supposed to be. I'd like to be able to set that up through 311. So, but I do like the transit app idea. Okay, any other questions? I'm going to go to the next one in the chat.
Okay. Sorry if I missed this, but how do you check it out? You pay through the app, or do you have to create an account?
so it's super simple. In order to use the vehicle, you will have to create an account. And what that looks like practically is the vehicles themselves have what's called a QR code on them. And so if you open your phone, specifically if you open the camera app on your phone, go over, take the picture, and it will prompt you to download the app. And you will download the app, create an account, and away you go.
And we will learn that in the First Ride Academy as well, right, Robert?
Exactly. Exactly.
That we're going to do just for District 7. I got a
100%.
inside track with Lime, so I think we can get a D7 one.
You definitely can.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, next one in the chat.
Will we eventually have all the vehicle options, scooters, bikes, and the ones that pull behind? I don't know what that means.
Yeah, so I think that's like a sort of an e-cargo option or a trailer option. We do not offer trailer options yet. As far as I know, there are only two cities that in the world that well, in the country that they have it, of course, in Copenhagen and Amsterdam because it's Copenhagen and Amsterdam. But Montreal has a shared cargo or e-trailer system, and then Boston just launched one of the first e-cargo shared bike systems in the country. Very limited, very small, and to be frank, the reason for that is the vehicles themselves are extremely expensive. They're quite heavy and they're quite large. So the vehicles themselves, if you look like an Urban Arrow or some of the other options, they tend to be quite wide. And certainly for folks that are a little bit less experienced on them themselves, being in a bike lane can be sometimes tough. So like when you look at box bikes and that kind of thing, they're big and they're wide and they can be a little unruly. So we're not planning on offering that just yet, though we would love to. And I think we're looking at federal grant options with the Joint Office and other entities about how we can make that happen. Right now, Lime is proposing scooters for Albuquerque. I think we're open to bikes sometime in the future. I think that right now it's figuring out how people use them, where they use them, when they use them, what the seasons look like, all of those things. And then looking forward, I think it's really a question of is it right for the city? And it very well could be. So I think that's right now it's scooters, but in the future it could very easily be bikes. Just so folks know, we also are piloting something called the Lime Glider, which is a sit-down throttle-based bike. Amazing vehicle. But what we think people will like and what people love are sometimes different things. So we're trying it out in Atlanta and we're trying it in Seattle. And it very easily could be the big winner. Some folks don't like to pedal. Some folks prefer to pedal. I prefer to pedal. So I think that's something that is certainly up for suggestion in the future.
Thanks, Robert. Carlos, another question?
Yeah. So I was monitoring the chat, and that question came up when you had a picture of like a bike trail, and there was a scooter, there was
Oh
a
yeah,
bicycle, and then there was one of your employees with like a cargo bike. If I understand correctly, that cargo bike is to move the scooters around. So what the and is that
correct.
gonna
Yeah, that's
be
not.
here in Albuquerque? Is that
Yeah,
how? Uh,
possibly it's up to the operations team. I will say that the operations team has their they have their requirements, and we are as much a logistics company as we are sort of a data company, et cetera, or startup, whatever you want to sort of call us. And the operations team is going to look at so many different metrics, where the battery swaps need to happen, what part of the city is going to have the highest use rates for our vehicles, et cetera. And they're going to make a determination really about, well, should we be using a van here to swap batteries, or should we be using an e-cargo bike? So, for instance, I think it's Minneapolis, we see this huge number of battery swaps and use of our vehicles in a very dense area. And it's just, why would you try and bring a van in there? It's not really worth it. So in that instance, they've decided basically to modify an e-cargo bike and use it. We used to do that in Navy Yard area, Washington, D.C. as well. And then, of course, again, I don't want to give them too much love, but our European partners, it's almost impossible to bring a van into most of those jurisdictions. So they're using e-cargo bikes for battery swaps.
Okay, we have 3 minutes left, so let's try to get through a couple more questions. So if there's any more you want to ask in person, raise your hand. Tanya, go to the next one in chat.
Okay. Will they be driven in bike lanes on the road? It is the other drivers who scare me. What kind of training will be offered for drivers on cars like the PS6?
Yeah, so in many cities, the DMV actually does trainings. If you go to the DMV in Washington, D.C., or actually on the back of our inspection stickers, it says watch for bikes, watch for pedestrians, etc. We can't offer that training through the DMV, obviously, unless they want us to. We're very happy to. So the vehicles will be ridden on the roads and in bike lanes. The more bike lanes, the better. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, and I'll just remind everybody that you can go online to the city's website and see a map of all the bike lanes citywide. You can get across the city pretty much anywhere on a bike lane, and that would be what I would encourage folks to use for this. Okay, one more, Peggy. Oh, Peggy's on. So Peggy, go ahead and ask your last question. We have 1 minute.
And I will answer all the chats via email.
Maybe we lost Peggy. Let's go to the next one in the chat.
Here, it's hard to change my mute button. Just hope that you can commit to answering the other questions that are in the chat. I think it's imperative to keep the competition on this open. I don't know that I've seen any planning documents that indicate where the sites are going to be. And I'd like to know kind of what percentage of the sites that are planned are going to be Lime sites, or is Lime just going to come in here and take all the scooter sites that are planned?
So yes. I'll answer that one really quickly because we got 1 minute left. So the legislation does lay out how many bikes and how many scooters can be for each company. We have 1,000 unit limit on each company, so we can have competition. You can check that out on 02423. Robert, any last thoughts?
No, just to your point, this is all in the legislation itself. I'm happy to follow up with anybody here individually as well. Tanya, feel free to share my email address. I'm very, very happy to do so. And then I think last thoughts, just really excited to work with everybody, excited to meet folks, excited to see folks that I've chatted to before. So just excited to be bringing the service to Albuquerque.
Well, thank you all for showing up today. As always, lots of really great questions. I'm excited about getting scooters and bikes here, and the legislation allows both, and so we hope that we will get both eventually. Thanks for showing up today. We will see you next month, and look for the newsletter in 2 weeks. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.